Act 1, Interlude to Action. Nothing bodes tragedy, despite the fact that the motive cannot be called flying or inspired. A note of heroism and something higher is present, even at the entry stage. Manipulation with harmony and intervals prepares the listener for something mystical. Listen to the harmonic part here is this, tonality G, steps V2 I2. But it's hard to name which notes are included in the chords. After all, something sounds non-standard. Here is how this part actually sounds. Listen to the intro. First technique used in the composition is polyphony. This is a game of two or more voices at the same time. While they should not complement each other, both parties are independent and self-sufficient. If you listen to them separately, it turns out that they play slightly different melodies. Listen separately to make sure the second voice which gradually turns consonances in chords into caustic discordant intervals. There is a difference between polyphony and the automated chorus effect. Processing shifts all the notes in the chord, which does not cause such a disorientation in the listener, and the smooth replacement of one note is what is needed for entry and mood. This is followed by a chorus where the rest of the instruments enter. Clean guitars continue to sound. Listen to the chorus. The riff is divided into two parts. A solid metal machine gun burst, and the same, only with pauses. The gap in the measure close to the end of the second beat sounds heavy and massive. The sound is going to the wall. After the refrain, there follows a loss on the same chords with small additional steps. All choruses in the song are the same rhythmically, but closer to the end they differ in tone. The motive of opposition is replaced by gloomy notes and the mood of tragedy and hopelessness. Let's see what the chorus consists of. Clean guitars. Guitars play the same part as at the beginning, therefore we will not dwell on it. There are only a couple of places in the song where the guitar changes the part. It is on them that we will focus. Keys. Despite the fact that they play a crucial role in composition, they need time to accelerate. So far, the keys beat the stages of the chords of a clean guitar to make the sound more interesting. Drum. The rhythm is set by a barrel and a snare drum. The figure shows the main notes in each measure. It can be seen that even during such a short rhythm they change. The second half begins with a barrel that is not blocked by a blow to the solo album. The snare drum performs the role of the second barrel. He does not stand in his usual place, but moves along the beat and waits for time to highlight a weak share. Despite the fact that there are a lot of beats to the solo album in time, the rhythm is still well read. This is helped by the plates that jump from the barrel to the solo album in the first part of the measure, and then play the usual 4/4 countdown to select the solo drum after the impact, and not before it. In popular music, such a technique is rarely found, especially if such a measure is one for the whole song. Not surprisingly, the listener will simply lose the thread and lose its rhythm. The second part of the picture, where the barrel pulls the helm, prepares us for the transition to the bridge after a single reprise. Again, this is a moment of surprise and at the same time a connecting link. If the two parts of the song are difficult to combine, you can do this technique. Play the transition a little earlier, where it sounds good, so that later it is easier to change the rhythm. The bridge that completes all the chorus is built on the principle of attack waiting. This allows you to make modulations on the go and translate the dynamics of the song in any direction. In this case, the attacking part of the bridge is taken from the chorus, and part of the weight is a single note beat. If you look at the last two measures that are repeated, you can see that in one of them the guitars that are not emphasized by the drums still fill the void, and after the repetition they already play with percussion in full force. This is a very important tact, since its structure allows you to move to the fast riff part. 2/4 notes with a dot and one without it is the rhythm of the whole song. Almost any measure comes down to 3 basic notes that are in these places. Bass plays duplicated notes that alternate with regular notes. Prima is a great technique for creating dynamics without chords. If the rest of the song plays bass solo, here it acts as a catalyst and multiplier, raising the tsunami of sound higher. After the bridge part of the chorus, the deepest blow is followed, a shift down an octave, which brings the listener underwater to the very center of action. For now, we will not touch on progressions, but we note that, on the scale of the whole composition, the refrain is a complex and protracted ascending progression. It is always higher and more massive than other components. However, the jerky part makes it easy to follow the idea of composition. Take a look at the guitars. For the chorus, standard scaled chords with additional steps were selected. Their goal is to accentuate polyphony and give the chords an exotic touch. Moreover, not all drawings and phrases are combined with growling power chords. For some important more dense and voluminous support in the rhythm section, we remember 2 keys, CM and G. Leading G, however, CM helps to diversify the sound and stay within the framework of the genres. The notes D sharp and G sharp are great for completing the reprise. Alternatively, the listener expects a familiar chord, and instead a chord with an increased additional step. A slight perplexity disappears when the next part begins, where this very stage acts as a dominant or subdominant. Here we first look at upward and downward progressions. Their role in the bridge part is to make a pit between the two combining parts. The effect of a jump, flight, acceleration, all this relates to progressions. They can also be used to make original transitions. I emphasize, original ones that will be remembered and divide the song into parts. This is how music with a capital letter is created. If the listener can guess, then it can skip the repeating part, and there may be something interesting there. A peculiar announcement will arouse interest in what is happening and hold attention. Moreover, the progression is not only tonal, but also rhythmic. In this case, the chords remained the same, but due to a rearrangement of places and a change in duration, the effect of a new part is created. The rhythm is getting closer to the riff, although they are slightly different. A clean guitar plays a slightly different part here, without going beyond the usual tonality, all in order to highlight the key shares of the riff, of which there are only 3. Here you can find borrowed notes from a different key that emphasize the dark side of the chord. The riff is built on the usual 16 notes. The main chords are still the same, but they alternate with a standard fifth, built from the tonic of S. It is nowhere else in the song, and this makes the riff stylized and unique. The main thing is not to overdo it. The barrel accentuates almost all strong parts, but does not go beyond the drawing 2/4 with a point and 1 ordinary. Guitar parts are looped, sometimes have an alternative ending in 4 measures. Despite the complex pattern in the barrel, the plates are a simple countdown. It's easier to catch the beat. So we got to the bass. He plays here in full force. Complex polyrhythmic and polyphonic progressions beat different notes from the guitar part. The fact is that the tone of the guitar is not neutral enough to expand the range of notes. Bass will cope with this task perfectly. If you imagine the amplitude frequency diagram of the instruments, it can be noted that the bass is between the barrel and the bottom of the guitars, which is cut to avoid conflict. There are important frequencies of the lower stages of the chord. Even with a 6-string guitar, you can create an 8-string effect that is caused by a quick change in the root note and the chord. Adding high notes to the bass creates soft melodic intervals that do not conflict with either a clean guitar or a solo part. The solo guitar enters party in C minor. This is immediately noticeable, as the sound is bright and focused. He does not emphasize gloom and darkness, but rather symbolizes something mysterious and sacred. Slides and legate structure is not chosen by chance. The party has almost no attack, which is why it does not scribble, but pours. The rest of the instruments play as before. Only the pattern of the drums has changed slightly in the direction of a jerky sound. The solo just lays down on top. The breakdown following the first part of the riff creates a discharge effect. The drums play a staccato pattern on their volumes, and the guitars play muffled chords on the lower strings. An impact punching sound brings a clean guitar to the forefront to create an ambient effect. Quiet. At first glance, the sound overlaps aggressive overloaded guitars and even drums to emphasize the main thing in the composition, the mood of the tragedy. The second, slower part of the breakdown falls apart. Guitars play 8 notes, the bass in some places duplicates them, and in some plays in the E interval. The drums, on the other hand, count half the rhythm to highlight the slowdown. When the voices do not match, they are heard better. This creates distance, volume, space. After the repetition of familiar parties, there is a transition to the second act. This is a regular 8-beat line, which consists of 2 chords. Gradually, they bring notes to music that were not enough before. The second act is slightly different in the set of notes and in dynamics, so you need to make the right emphasis in front of it.